Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. I have a song in my head today, and it's from Greece, and it is that Greece is the word song. So at any point, if I happen to sing on the podcast today and it just comes out, I'm sorry. / not sorry. Also, it's a phenomenal song. And I've heard it for the first time in ages today, and it's really made my Monday. So I'm feeling very jazzy about this. I'm feeling very excited about Monday, about Greece in general. Maybe I will watch it later. I'm not sure yet. But that is not necessarily what I want to be talking about today. In fact, today is important because today we're talking about thought leadership versus thought ownership. And it's going to get juicy. I'm like, side note, how do people feel about juicy versus moist as a word? Because I've heard things, many people say to me, I really hate the word moist. But for me, I just said juicy and I kind of felt a little bit like, not sure how I feel about that today. I say it quite a lot, so I'm not going to give it up just yet, but just thoughts on a postcard or on Instagram. Let me know, which do you hate more, juicy or moist? Anyway, thought leadership versus thought ownership. So to get really into this, I've kind of been putting together some new programs from the business model that I have been streaming over the last 3 months. And if you listen to last week's Monday episode, you will know that over the coming months, I'm streamlining my business massively. The funnels are still going to be there. They're still going to be doing the hard work. But in terms of how I work with my audience on a non-automated basis, everything is heavily streamlining. And one of the things that I've spent a lot of time creating over the last couple of months and kind of working on behind the scenes is my new Evolve program, of which there are 2 tiers. There is a tier for people who are looking to make 6 figures within the next month, and then there is a tier for people who are looking to make 500K or more in the next 6 months, 12 months. I'm like, wow, 500K in 6 months. I would like that. But yes, in the next 12 months. And as part of this Evolve process, one of the things that's come to me when I was looking at how Evolve was going to work, because I've created it as more of a university experience, I needed to differentiate for the people who were going to be participating in Evolve in both tier 1 and tier 2, and what was actually going to get them the best results the quickest. And this is where this idea of thought ownership versus thought leadership came up for me. Now, I don't know that thought ownership is a thing. Okay, this is something that I was trying to think about during this process of mapping out Evolve and mapping out what the transformation would look like at different levels. And I wanted the step before thought leadership, because if you have listened to episodes in March on the podcast, you'll know that I've talked a lot about thought leadership and how thought leadership doesn't necessarily make you any money. And one of my big bugbears around thought leadership, and certainly how it's promoted, is that everyone's like, oh my God, you have to be a thought leader online. And I'm like, but it's not really going to make you any money. So what does make you money? When you're not really at a point yet where you perhaps aren't being invited on a TED stage every week, perhaps you don't have a huge audience, and you really want to make waves with a certain thought or concept, for me, you have to focus on what I'm going to term thought ownership. Now, I have looked it up online. I did do a quick Google, and I'm definitely not going to be the first person to ever say thought ownership, but the definition that I'm going to give it is perhaps different to what you might see. A lot of people, when they are talking online about thought ownership, they're talking about it in a corporate setting. They're talking about thought ownership being given to employees who are working for firms to make them feel like they own part of a project, to make them feel like it's not just all about group success. For me, the definition of thought ownership that I'm taking into Evolve and that I'm talking about today is this idea that you can start different conversations to help you build your brand and position yourself as an upcoming world changer thought leader, rebel with a cause, however you want to term it. But the big difference for me between thought ownership and thought leadership is that thought ownership is based around the content that you're putting out to make sure it converts. Thought leadership is about these wider conversations that focus on becoming the go-to individual or organization for a specific area of expertise. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, Jess, that doesn't sound very different. And it doesn't sound very different. And when we get into the practicalities of it, it's not hugely different, but the results are. Okay, just because you can't become the go-to person for a specific area of expertise does not mean you are going to get paid for said area of expertise. It means you're going to get quoted in a ton of blogs. Seth Godin, like somebody I love to quote, Jim Rohn, somebody I also love to quote, have never paid either of them. Okay, I've bought Seth Godin's books, so ostensibly I've probably given him 20 pence from Amazon, but I've never worked with them in a high level capacity. Okay, and the thing about thought leadership is that we're using this big term online. Everyone's like, oh, I want to be a thought leader. And I'm like, yeah, it's good. It's good to aim for being that go-to person within a specific area of expertise. Also though, really good to get paid for that. And that's what I want you to do. If you're not yet making six figures, I want you, instead of thinking about thought leadership, to start thinking about thought ownership. What conversations are you creating that are putting you apart, that are helping you disrupt your industry? And if you haven't thought about the ways that you're disrupting your industry yet, a few weeks ago I ran this really cool challenge called the Internet Evolution Challenge. You can still sign up for that if you go to smartleadersell.com/real-revolution. That's smartleadersell.com/real-revolution. You can actually pick up that Internet Evolution Challenge in a handy 5-step PDF. And you can get all of the exercises and look at how you can be disrupting your industry. Okay, so really start thinking about this difference and what it's going to mean for you. Are you ready to be a thought leader? Are you ready to not necessarily get paid for your ideas, but become somebody who's regularly quoted for them and be seen as that go-to expert or individual in your area? Or are you somebody who's like, yeah, I want to become a thought leader, but right now I need it to also pay the bills. So I need to be a thought owner. Okay, and I need to be focusing on those conversations that are really going to help me convert paying clients. And that's where we are today. So as I was saying, I was thinking about Evolve. I was thinking about how we could produce a new generation of thought owners who within 12 months could migrate from being thought owners to starting to position themselves and starting to become thought leaders. And there was a bit of an uncomfortable feeling around this for me, because one of the things that I was really conscious of was we're consistently being sold that we have to be thought leaders. But for me, there is this big difference between being disruptive, being able to dominate your industry, being able to have these conversations that convert, and this idea that you have to be a thought leader who is regularly visible, but not always getting paid for that visibility. And that's something that for me, I had to define based on revenue. And I don't believe that before you are generating six figures in your business, you really have the financial stability or the income to throw away on other people quoting a ton of stuff from you, but not actually paying you for that privilege. Okay. Does that sound really pretentious? It might do. I don't know. But for me, that's how it felt. And I know that when I was looking to hit six figures in my business, my key focus was I want to make sure my clients are happy. I want to make sure they're getting great results. I know that if they get great results, that is going to help me build my business. It's going to keep them happy. It's going to keep my client retention rate high. And I want to be selling because I want to make a specific revenue goal. Okay, so that for me was really, really important. And this idea of thought ownership was something that I was kind of doing naturally. I was saying different things. I didn't really care. We've had this conversation before, and I've talked to you about when I first came online, I didn't really mind what people thought about me. I was inherently kind of arrogant at the start because I just didn't care. I was like, well, you know what? If you don't think about sales in the same way as I do, then you're probably wrong. I say that now and I laugh so uncomfortably because I then obviously went through this period of about a year and a half being so vanilla online and so diplomatic. And I just wanted everyone to feel okay about the fact that I didn't want to sell in the same way as they did. And even now, that comes up for me. You know, when I say things that are bold, I'm like, oh, you know, sometimes Jess, you could just turn it down a little bit. But that's the thing. Thought ownership and thought leadership are very similar in that respect. Either way, you are making big, bold statements. You are having big, bold conversations. The difference only is that as a thought owner, you are using the conversations that you are starting, you're using the statements that you're making to help you convert clients. As a thought leader, you are making those statements, you are building those conversations to increase the amount of impact that you can have in the world. Okay. Now, thought ownership, you can also create impact with that. And I don't want to diminish this in any way. I don't want people to think like, oh, what? So I have to be a thought owner. That sounds ridiculous. It's kind of like, you know, being a learner driver. Oh, great. I have to drive with my mom, my dad, my terrified driving instructor before I can graduate to being a driver. But I also think it's a rite of passage. I don't think you can go straight to being a thought leader. I think first you have the conversations, you put your reps in by bringing people around to your way of thinking, by setting up your structures, by helping people achieve results. And then I think you graduate to being a thought leader when you have the finances to do so, when you are stable in your beliefs, when you know where you want to go for the next 3 to 5 years. And a lot of people don't know that at the beginning of their business. And a lot of people don't actually know that before they have achieved the revenue mark they're looking to achieve. Now, you might be thinking, well, Jess, I don't want to make 6 figures. And that's fine. If you don't want to make 6 figures, whatever. But if your goal is 25K or 50K, you might get to that point where you're making that money and think, well, actually, I don't want to do it this way anymore. And so it's not necessarily the easiest thing to start as a thought leader, because once you commit to having this huge level of impact and this huge audience with it, it becomes quite difficult to change. You know, you create something that effectively has a life of its own, and you have to manage that, and you have to 100% solidly believe that for a prolonged period of time. Whereas when you're trying to get to your first revenue goal or your second revenue goal, and actually your priorities are client results and making the revenue that you're looking to make and building your business in a sustainable way, thought leadership is important. It's a goal, but you can have this thought ownership and be flexible and be able to still have that flexibility to change your mind. You know, for me, I was always a big fan of one-to-one work. I loved it. I made my first 6 figures doing one-to-one work, and it was great. I was like, oh, this is so good. I get to work with people on such a deep level. It's so much fun. It's so interesting. I get to support them through the whole process. Like, I just felt really good. And then I got to, I think it was 2017, when I announced, I was like, oh, do you know what? Actually, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't want to run my business like that anymore. But had I not gone through that period, and that was 3 years for me, of actually owning that thought, really sitting with it, getting the results with it, focus on selling those one-to-one packages, I might have become the kind of thought leader who was like, yeah, no, you should only ever do one-to-one, and it should all be, you know, I might have propagated a certain idea about relationships, and I might have gone down a path that said, no, deep relationships can only come from working with somebody one-to-one. And that would have been really challenging for me. And it would have meant that my business in some ways was very restricted to what I could change later on. Okay. So start thinking about what you want to be and why. You know, again, for me, thought leadership is a combination of 2 things. And I'll be really honest about this. For me, it's a combination of vanity. I want to be known as somebody who's really good at helping people make money, helping people make good money, money that means that they can sleep at night and know that they're not ripping anyone off, but simultaneously they are able to build a life for themselves that they deserve, that they want. And I want people to know that. I don't want to be that best kept secret. And so for me, thought leadership is this vanity project. I'm like, oh, well, you know, if a bunch of people are saying my name, that would feel really good, you know. Also, impact. And I didn't always think that these two things were simultaneous, vanity and impact, but turns out they are. Because alongside that vanity of wanting to be that person, I know that if I step up into a thought leadership role, yes, I put myself out there for more people to potentially take down a peg or two. You know, tall poppy syndrome is a real thing. But also I get to make a bigger impact in the world. I get to impact more businesses. I get to help more people. And I get to do that in different ways. I can spend more time on creating quality free content. I can spend more time on helping my existing clients achieve better results because I'm really doubling down on that versus trying to put out massive messages all the time about multiple different things. When I was in thought ownership, the thing for me was I wanted to start interesting conversations that meant I got to work with interesting people and get them the very best results. And that for me was the important goal. I want to work with clients I love. And that came from being able to articulate what I believed about my industry. It came from being able to start conversations that attracted other people who were just like me, who were thinking about things but perhaps not saying them. And it allowed me to immediately be able to work with those people because I would be able to say confidently, hey, you're just like me. You have the same value system I do. You have the same opinion on things that I do. And here's how I can help you use that opinion to really fit into the business and the world that you want to create as a result. So really start thinking about, why do you want both of these things? And if you're like me and vanity is part of it, yay, you're normal, you're human, and that's totally cool. But also start thinking about, am I ready for it? Like we talked about earlier, am I ready to not get paid for my thoughts? Or actually right now is the important thing for me, revenue, clients, getting them the best results, getting word of mouth, referrals, and all that kind of good stuff that comes with really taking that position as a thought owner, starting these conversations that lead to those interesting clients, to that amazing revenue, and also to those referrals, results, and things that you can create that are ongoing. And that for me is the big difference, and that's where we talk about evolution in our businesses. And that is the whole purpose. When I started thinking about Evolve, when I started thinking about this particular piece of Evolve, it was not about creating another messaging module. I think there's so much that we say about messaging. Oh, you've got to build your message. But for me, it felt loose. Okay, message, right? What is that anymore? And for me, because the people that I'm working with have these specific goals, they're super ambitious. They want to hit certain levels in their business. Actually, it wasn't really about message anymore. It wasn't about content marketing. It was this idea of, do I want to be a thought owner? Do I want to be a thought leader? Am I ready to explore those options? Rather than, I have to be a content marketer because I run my business online. And that's something that, content does power our business. There's no getting away from that. The kind of content you can change, the medium of content that you provide, you can change. But actually, if you run a business in any form, brick and mortar, online, e-com, whatever, you need content, and you will always automatically, as part of being a business owner, become a content marketer in some way. What you will not always want to be, and the thing I think that differentiates my clients from perhaps other businesses, is that they know they need to produce content, but they want that content to do very specific things. And that's where that thought ownership and thought leadership piece comes in. So start thinking about that in your business, and start looking at, who do I want to be? Is it the right time for me right now? What kind of conversations do I want to start? And like I say, you can always go back. You can always sign up for the Internet Evolution Challenge. We have it in a handy PDF. You can start asking yourself some of those questions around, am I disrupting and dominating the industry? What decisions am I really making and taking forward to be a better business owner? What do I actually want? I'm not going to spoil them for you. There's only one of those questions that's actually asked, but nevertheless, go and take a look at that and see whether that is something that you are interested in. Do you want to be a thought leader or a thought owner or a content marketer? And are you doing it for you and for what you want? Or are you doing it just because somebody else tells you, well, you have to be a thought leader in order to be big, you have to be a thought leader? Because that's not true. There are lots and lots of massive companies out there who are not thought leaders. but they make a ton of money. They have literally thousands of employees, and they're not thought leaders at all. There are even internet marketers who are not thought leaders, who are not thought owners. They're great at content marketing, and that is fine. So really start thinking about who you want to be. And if you are interested in the Evolve experience, again, I'd highly recommend, we're still accepting applications, that you go over to smartleadersell.com/evolve. All you need to do is put your name and your email address in there, and you will be sent an email with all of the sneak behind the scenes detail about Evolve, and you'll be invited to apply on that email. But Evolve is a 12-month business experience where you get personalized time with me. It's a university experience, so you have office hours. You are going to be able to network with some incredibly impressive, high-performing individuals. Most importantly, you're going to be working through some of this stuff. You're going to be working through this idea of who are you going to become? How are you going to own that thought space? How are you going to start those conversations? How are you going to build the business that is balanced around your lifestyle, around the fast growth of your business, but also around the things that you actually want, your core values and meanings. And obviously, most importantly, perhaps, says the sales coach, around your revenue, around how you're deciding to scale, how you're deciding to move forward, and setting the right foundations for your scalable success. So that's not just about quick cash. It's about how can we make sure that you are having the most successful year possible, standing completely apart from the crowd and hitting those revenue goals as a result of doing the right things, implementing balance, becoming that thought owner, making sure that you have that sales strategy and that you're executing it, as well as high-level accountability, support, and networking with other ambitious individuals. So if you're interested in that, make sure you head across to smartleadersell.com/evolve. You'll be able to pick up all of the details there. Hit me up on Instagram. Let me know what your key takeaway was today and whether you are going to go forward and become a thought owner or a thought leader, and why. I would love to know. I always love seeing you guys in my inbox. So have an epic Monday. And I will see you in Friday's episode where we have a really cool guest. And I know I say that about every guest, but honestly, I've been so fortunate to have some incredible people recording episodes recently with me that are bringing so much to the table for you guys. And I'm really, really excited about this particular Friday. So I'll see you then.